Let's talk about lonely men and all this like buzz of the crisis of lonely men. And let's talk a little bit about spiritual things. So, why are men lonely? For one purpose, right? Men are actually lonely because they don't have God. So, it's the only reason a man could feel alone. The other thing, too, guys, is check this out. Like going out hunting, right? If you're let's just pretend like you're on a hunting party. It's back in the day, and like a whole bunch of dudes are going out. Every one of those dudes, it's not like a bunch of women chattering back and forth, like sewing back at the house. That's not how men operate. Like we go out to do a task, but we go out to do a task with other men quietly. Even when we're surrounded by other guys, we're fixing something, we're hunting, we're building something, we're putting up drywall, we're building a deck, we're whatever. There's a guy right next to you. You ain't talking to him. You're doing stuff. Even though you're in company, you're alone. So make peace with the loneliness. Because as guys, like the only thing we got is God, right? So part of the loneliness crisis is you're spiritually empty. Your prayer life sucks, your discipline life sucks, your obedience sucks. It's like, oh, well, I can't agree with all the commandments because of. Come on. Come on, man. Yeah, you can. You can conform yourself to. That's how it works. You conform yourself to the commandments. You don't ask the commandments to conform to you. That means you're making yourself a little tiny heathen god. That's gross. All right, so now let's talk of holy things and spiritual things as men that are alone and why it's good. So check this out. This is a little reflection I wrote, and I'll just read it mostly and make some commentary along the way. Talk of spiritual holy things, a note to whom understands. How I long for others that live the ordinary life. That's like just the married life, the day to day life, the whatever your single dude life, you're coming up in the world. I long for others that live the ordinary life that are so full of the goodness and chastisement of God to converse with, to learn, and speak the same language of the soul. Yet, 'tis God who leaves us alone. It's God who chastises you. God chastises the ones he loves. So you got to stop avoiding that chastisement and see it as God allowing it for your great strength to forge you. Do you think the process of forging is easy? No, it's like getting slammed with a hammer nonstop. But at that time, that metal's been folded and folded and folded. All of a sudden, you got a strong sword. Like you've been forged, you've been made, you've been created, and it's through that nonstop, like nonstop for your whole life, aloneness and chastisement sent by God. So to God's great delight, his ordinary ones, who he delights in his infinite wisdom and perfection, allowing all sorts of temptation, sending trials, chastisements, obligations, and duties, only to perfect the ordinary, without pomp or pride, men who bear all, suffer all with joy and emptiness in their trials. The emptiness, like fully giving, like everything you have, where you're empty and yet you're still giving. That's where charity starts. That's where true charity starts, guys. Now, the saints show us that we are to suffer it all alone. You have great saints, like they went into deserts, they went into caves, they went alone before they even lived in community. They did it alone, like with God. They weren't alone, but they were alone as in the sense like men are made to be alone. Like we're created to be alone. Even when we're in a room full of other dudes, like we're still kind of operating alone. Women are very different. They're in a room full of girls, like they're all operating together. They actually operate so far close together that they all start to share the same cycles and everything. And it's amazing. It's very different from women. Guys and gals are very, very different. Now, the saints show us that we are to suffer alone in a truer sense, to suffer with him, God, who formed us, who knows our frame. Like God, like think about this, guys. Like God is the same nature as us, similar nature to who we are. Like he knows our frame. He knows our weaknesses. He knows our strengths, our longings, our desires. It is God who detests our pride, most likely keeping us alone for our good. It's God that's keeping you alone too for your own good, because your pride will probably kick up. And that's even nastier than any of the temptations that God could allow, any of the chastisements that God could allow. Like, you don't want to fall into pride. It's the worst of the worst. He, God, who detests our pride, most likely keeping us alone for our good, alone in the spiritual life, in a desert, in a cave, with no one but him to converse the depths of our soul with. That's it, guys. So if you want to have a truer sense of who you are, you got to have God in your life, or else you will truly, truly, truly be alone. And those are the guys that are probably suffering the most. Those are the guys who Google search, why am I lonely? There's a crisis in masculinity. We're alone. No, you've always been alone. Like, don't think of yourself as women. Like, you're men made by the hand of God. Like, think of yourselves as fulfilling that aloneness with God. Like, that's how you are created. And I'm talking to me especially. Like, I'm speaking to you guys, but I'm also, this is a good reminder for my own self of how I'm made, how I operate, how we operate as men, and to give you guys a little insight into being alone and making peace with it, and why you need God and religion, the virtue of religion in your life, because it fulfills you as a man. Like, that fulfills you. All right. So it's God who knows all, hears, teaches, chastises, allows a myriad of temptation, only that we die to self and live in him. Only that we are perfected, not to pridefully prance around, sharing, teaching his ways for us, but alone, that we be not of this world, but longing for his kingdom, God's kingdom. That alone we become completely emptied out, giving not any more from abundance, but giving from nothing. Like, that's the charity of it. Like, giving when you have nothing left. We are alone, emptied out, not giving any more from abundance, but giving from nothing, where charity finally begins. It is he who says, I perfect you, try you, empty you. Not for your glory, dudes, but for God's glory. So that's a quick reflection. Why you need God, why you need the virtue of religion, why you are meant to be alone, why you're created to be alone. And with God, you'll never be alone. And you'll start to make peace with your aloneness and understand who you are as a man, created by the hand of God. All right, subscribe if you like this. Out.